For me to update you on some of the key items that we have in TfL and the taxi and private hire team that we're currently focusing on at this time. I want to start by introducing the team here today. So firstly, I'm Graham Robinson. I'm the General Manager for Taxi and Private Hire. I also have Stuart Lee here. I don't know, Stuart, if you could stand up. I can't actually see you. My eyes are terrible, but he is here somewhere. And we also have Becky Underwood, who is our Head of Contracts and Operations Manager, Perry Kissing, who is one of our Operations Manager within the compliance team, and his colleague as well, James Pullum. So we will be available later on to answer any of the questions that you have. So I'd also like to thank everyone in the industry here for all that you've done in supporting passengers through the pandemic. This has been an unprecedented time for everyone across London and the UK, and I know this has been an extremely tough time for the industry and for you personally. Although there is still a long way to go, hopefully you are now seeing the shoots of recovery across the city. I'd like to stress, however, that it's vital that we continue to prioritise our own mental and physical well-being. It is important to be self-aware and to spot any warning signs of feeling mentally unwell and to seek help and support at the earliest opportunity. With this in mind, we continue to promote this in all of our comms that go out, the support services that are available to all licensees, whether this be in our TPH notices that we issue from time to time, or weekly emails that go out to all licensees and our social media messages. So please do visit our dedicated TPH Health and Wellbeing webpage, which provides a plethora of information about the services and guidance and support that are available to everybody. Let's move on. So now, as we start to recover and more journeys are being undertaken across the capital, we are looking at how to mitigate some of the more lasting impacts of the pandemic and how best we can support the private hire services to recover. We want to make sure that the taxi and private hire industry across London is at the forefront of that recovery, and that can be done by placing a real focus on the delivery of a high quality of customer service and the safety of passengers and the public. So with that in mind, I want to update you on some of the work we've been doing, but also to highlight some of the changes that are coming into effect very shortly to support those principles of delivering an excellent customer service in a safe way, which I know you're all dedicated to doing. So with that, so looking at some of the ongoing impacts of the pandemic, I just wanted to highlight the current issue that we have at our vehicle inspection centres. So as you may recall, in March 2020, we temporarily closed all 6 taxi and private hire vehicle inspection sites as a result of the national lockdown restrictions. So this led to a significant number of vehicles having to remain licensed for another 6 months. This action, whilst it was the right thing to do at the time, has led to a significant number of vehicles requiring a vehicle inspection in October 2021, which is exceeding the capacity that we would normally need at the time. And conversely, in April 2022, there will be a significant fewer vehicles licensed due to expire in that time. So I have a chart here which might be difficult for some of you to see, but really it's just to demonstrate that you'll see that there is a huge peak in October, and then the following year you'll see a real down to where there's hardly any vehicles that need to be licensed. What we've done in order to smooth that out, the capacity and demand at our vehicle inspection centre for future years, we recently took the decision to issue 6-month licences to approximately 4,000 private hire vehicles that were due for inspection in October of this year. The initial group of vehicles that will be issued those licences are the ones that were previously subject to an additional period of licensing in April 2020. So I appreciate that some of the vehicle owners that are affected may prefer to have a 12-month licence as they normally would. However, what this action does, it will return the vehicles back to their previous position in the licensing cycle, and in do so, it will prevent additional costs to the industry each year as additional measures would have needed to be addressed to address the peaks and troughs. So you can see that this will be an annual event for us, and at each time we would have to pay for additional capacity, and then we would also have to look to compensate our provider in the April period. So doing this year will really have a knock-on impact of the cost savings that we can prevent in future years. So hopefully, so we have now contacted all of those vehicle owners that have been notified. And if you have any questions about that, myself or Becky Underwood is here and we can take you through the actions that are needed from there. So hopefully this demonstrates that where we can, we will continue to look for pragmatic solutions to the repercussions of the pandemic as we go forward and look to recover. So just moving on, I thought it was a good chance to give you an update of what we're doing with the DfT Statutory Standards report that was published last year. So despite the impact of the pandemic and the work required to introduce a new assessment, which I'll talk about shortly, we have continued to progress with the implementation of the recommendations from the DfT Statutory Standards report, so which we're fully committed to complying with as early as we can. So we're currently compliant with approximately 50% of the recommendations, and there are more changes to be introduced shortly to make us more compliant. So we recognise that a number of the requirements are quite complex and will have an impact to applicants and licensees when introduced. So we are therefore considering a consultation in the near future that will explore the options on how the recommendations can be introduced in the most pragmatic way. So the consultation won't be looking at the question of should we introduce those requirements, it will be looking at the how we will introduce them and asking for input into what the impact would be, those local considerations that are local to London. So as an example of the work we've been doing, I'd like to share with you our new online safeguarding course. So this is something we're introducing in line with the recommendation from the DfT for all licensing authorities to provide training in this area. So keeping children and vulnerable adults safe from harm and abuses is everyone's responsibility. Licensees, particularly licensed drivers and individuals working for private hire operators, are in a fantastic position to contribute towards safeguarding against the abuse, exploitation and neglect of children and vulnerable adults. By understanding the early warning signs and knowing what to do where there are concerns that a child, young person or vulnerable adult is at risk, licensees can play a significant role in preventing future harm. So with this in mind, and in line with the DfT standards recommendations for taxing private hire licensing, TfL has developed a safeguarding awareness course for all drivers and other licensees to take. This course is also important for staff working for private hire operators and taxi booking platforms who may be able to identify safeguarding issues and take action to help prevent them. So we recommend that all licensees undertake the safeguarding course at the earliest opportunity. It's an important tool that would help them understand the role that they can take in keeping children and vulnerable adults safe. So I've got a few slides here highlighting the kind of content that you'll expect to see. It is an interactive course, but it's quite straightforward to use. It works on all systems and software, very easy to do on your phone. It's not something that you pass or fail. It's designed in a way that is informative and takes you through some scenarios that you could look at. So this is the introductory screen that you would see there. It then goes through how you can identify concerns and the types of things that you'll be looking for. But then it takes you through some scenarios that you would have, and it will ask you questions about whether that's a safeguarding issue or not, and then it will talk to you about the various actions you could take. It's not suggesting that you have to intervene, it's more all about reporting the issues to those people that can take action, namely the police. So as you can see, here's a question that it would take you through. So we're hoping to get that published very shortly. I was actually hoping to be able to show it to you now, but it will be on our web pages in the very, very near future. So then another huge piece of work that we've been working on is a new safety, equality and regulatory understanding assessment. So it is essential that private hire drivers have an appropriate understanding of safety, equality awareness and regulatory requirements that apply to them. This is important as it helps ensure both the public and drivers are safe, and it enhances customer service for passengers. So with that in mind, we've now developed a new safety, equality, regulatory understanding, the Serra Assessment as it will be known, for all private hire driver applicants and existing driver licensees, which will apply to them when they apply from the 1st of October. That's now our proposal. To satisfy this requirement, all private hire driver applicants and existing drivers will be required to pass an assessment which will include questions on all three areas. All the questions included in the assessment will be based upon the contents of a newly published private hire driver handbook. Applicants will be required to read this handbook, and there is also an online assessment guide. They take this prior to undertaking the assessment in one of the TfL centres, so that they can be confident that they can answer the questions contained within the assessment. The handbook is an invaluable tool to both applicants and existing licensees and will be updated from time to time. So I've got a few examples of the information that's in the handbook and will be in the assessment. And I want to give assurance that this information that licensed drivers should already know. It's not designed to catch people out. It is just there as an assurance piece to make sure that they do have that awareness. So as an example, one of the areas we'll be looking at is just about their obligations about wearing their private hire driver's ID badge and making sure that it is visible for passengers. Another example is making sure that the vehicle that they use is licensed and is displaying its disc. And then we do go into more other things and guidance of what they can do to make sure that they are safe and actions that they could take if there is any difficulties with a passenger. And then also what they need to do if they have any changes in circumstances about their medical health that's there as well. So as I say, this is information we would expect drivers to already be aware of. It's just making sure that they've got everything in one place and that we have that assessment and confidence that every licensee has that understanding. So here are some of the questions. I don't think you're going to be able to read them, unfortunately, that's there. But what it is demonstrating is there is a question, multiple choice answers for them to answer that's there. Okay. So in addition to that, I'd now just like to talk to you about the English language requirement. Just to go back on the Serra though, I do want to allay any concerns that we're not expecting drivers to pass this assessment straight away. We recognise that the industry needs time to prepare for the assessment, so we are putting some transitional provisions in place that will mean that whilst it will apply to people that have submitted an application from the proposal of the 1st of October, they will have a period of time in order to take that assessment. So it won't prevent a licence from being issued, but they will need to have undertaken and passed the test within a good period of time. And we're currently looking at an 18-month period for them to actually undertake the assessment. So I also wanted to now just update you about some changes in the approach to the English language requirement, which has been in place for a number of years now. So we have been writing to all licensees regarding the need to submit evidence to us by the 30th of September. That's the transitional arrangements that have been in place now for a long period of time. We've reminded people that they need to submit their evidence by today, but we recognise that there are still a number of people that haven't provided that evidence. So we are now looking to introduce actually two assessments which drivers will need to pass in order to demonstrate that they can communicate in English at an appropriate level. And these are changes that we've been looking at whilst discussing some issues that there have been with various trade representatives, looking at what different options there are to streamline the approach and make it more efficient. And that's how we've come to the conclusion that actually we should make a change in this area. And we hope that this will be seen as a more efficient way of drivers being able to demonstrate their level of English. So, as I say, we'll be looking to introduce two separate assessments for the drivers to take. Firstly, with the introduction of the Serra Assessment, which I've just highlighted, we have designed it in such a way that it will enable us to have confidence in a driver's reading and writing ability, meaning that there would be no need for a separate test in order for that to be assessed. As all licensees will be required to take the test anyway, this is an excellent opportunity for those who haven't met the English language requirement to satisfy us that they have those skills. And secondly, when looking at the speaking and listening requirements, we are going to be introducing a separate test It's going to be provided by a service provider that's there's an expert in linguistics. It's a 15 to 20 minute conversational test that they'll be undertaking at the same time that they're undertaking the Serra Assessment, and for new applicants, they're topographical as well. So this runs through the points that I've just made there. This is a bit of a diagram, just a simplistic way of looking what it would be for a new applicant. So the topographical skills assessment would still be required, that is mandatory, and you would have to pass that test in order to get your licence. However, there will be those two other elements. We have the Serra Assessment, which is looking at safeguarding, quality and regulatory understanding. But there would also be the speaking and listening test, which is effectively a conversation with the experts over a phone taken in the TfL centres. Now, at the moment, we have about 50,000 drivers that have provided evidence to us regarding their English language skills. We're continuing to work through that evidence in order to understand whether they have satisfied the requirement or not. But as I say, there are still a significant number of people that haven't provided anything, and we need to have that confidence that all licensees have met the requirements. So what we will be doing is we will talk to every individual and give them an update about whether that evidence has been satisfied or not. Where it hasn't been satisfied, we won't be taking action on their licence. We will then be giving them an opportunity to sit the Serra Assessment and the English language test. I think the key message at this moment in time is that all drivers don't need to do anything. We will contact them. We will let them know if their evidence has been satisfied. Where it hasn't been satisfied, we will arrange an appointment for them to come in. And with that, we would give them time to prepare. So it's the same as the approach we're doing for the Serra Assessment. There will be a period where licences will still be issued until they've had that appointment and had an opportunity to pass the assessment. Okay. So I know that's a lot of information, a lot of areas that I've covered there, and I'm happy to take any questions in the information zone. My team's here as well. We're happy to talk about any questions you may have for TfL on private hire matters. So feel free to come and contact us. What I will say is that we will be issuing a number of TPH notices that will go through this in far more detail and make sure that it's all laid out in layman's terms for everybody to understand. There will be a lot more information that will go on our website. We're looking to make sure that we cover scenarios to make sure everybody has an understanding of how these new requirements apply to them. And if more information is needed, we'll, of course, make sure that that's provided to everyone. But as I say, for the Serra Assessment in English language, the key message is not to worry that a licence won't be issued in the near future, but we will be contacting them about getting prepared for those new requirements. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Graham. John, just a quick word from me. We've been working and campaigning for a far better system for English language tests since 2016. We're pleased to say that we're looking at this, and it's a far more pragmatic, far less expensive, far better system of testing. Some of the requirements that Graham has mentioned are national requirements that have come in from government. We've seen some appalling things going on in other licensing authorities. We've seen some appalling, expensive testing, training, people doing things they don't need to do. And the trade reps are generally happy with what TfL have got towards here. There is no choice in this. TfL had to do this. We're delighted also, and we should thank them that they've taken the very pragmatic view not to revoke a single driver's licence. We're on our knees for drivers, and that would have been a killer. So difficult to take questions and answers on this because there's a lot taking place, but the other trade reps are meeting regularly with TfL. We applaud the fact that they've taken a pragmatic view also on the safeguarding elements. There is no pass or fail. We're having people failing while we're short of drivers for getting into safeguarding issues that they're never going to meet as part of their job as a chauffeur or a specialist private hire vehicle. So, you know, we've criticised TfL quite openly and we've protested against TfL, but I would say that we're in a far better place with this branch of things, and it's also good that many of the things are moving towards online as well with TfL. And we will continue to work with them and other licensing authorities, but it is a dog's dinner elsewhere, I can tell you. There's some real serious problems that are exacerbating our critical driver shortage. So if you've got questions for TfL, they're going to be in the information zone all day. They're going to be putting out a lot of comms. We'll also be putting out the comms. But no driver has to fear about not being able to work tomorrow. We negotiated with Sadiq Khan that extension after extension after extension. The existing tests will be valid. The new tests will be cheaper, something we've asked for. The new tests will be actually more fit for purpose, something we've asked for. It's taken 5 years. There's a number of people in the building today that stood outside City Hall and gave evidence. Well done to them. The outcome is that TfL have listened, and we must give credit where credit's due on this. So there has been some positive changes, and this is good news, what's being announced. Thank you, John.
Hey, what comes across loud and clear is that you have an industry which is tough to operate in. From an outside perspective looking in, I bet you that Mrs. Miggins, who gets her lift to her doctors every day, has no idea of the level of regulation, the level of tests, the level of certification that you need to be able to operate. And I think your level of professionalism needs to step outside of your own audience. You are very good at communicating with each other and through Steve and making sure that you navigate your road as well as you can. What's clear is that the general public have no idea whatsoever just how good you are. They take it for granted. Oh, I'll get a black cab. Oh, I'll get a black cab because they're X, Y, Z. Actually, you guys meet those standards hands down. You are outstanding servants to society, and I think it's about time that Mrs. Miggins, the general public, did appreciate just how good you are.